Hi, hello everyone, and welcome to our Lunch and Learn today. My name is Stacy Nell. I'm the Executive Director of the Kansas African American Affairs Commission. I am thrilled and excited to be joined today by Lieutenant Governor David Toland. He's here today to talk to us in his capacity as the Commerce Secretary, the Secretary of the Department of Commerce. There's lots of exciting news about opportunities for economic development that have been coming to Kansas, and I'm very grateful that Lieutenant Governor, you took some time out of your schedule today to come on to talk to us about these opportunities. So thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thanks, Stacy. I'm thrilled to be here and really glad to have this audience talk about how we can grow our state as a whole, and particularly, frankly, do a better job of supporting African American and minority entrepreneurs across the state.
Fantastic. So, a question that I ask everyone who comes on, what are you having for lunch?
Oh, well, I already had it, and it was Bobo's. I don't know if you've been to Bobo's in Topeka. It's this 1950s kind of drive-in diner place, has a tiny little counter and got some stalls where you can park, kind of like an old-style Sonic. And they have what's called the Spanish burger, which has this sweet kind of tomato-based sauce on it. Delicious. Highly recommend, and get the onion rings. So
okay. All right. You know what? Thank you. There you go. Look at that. Drumming up business for a local entrepreneur and local business already.
Absolutely. It's the best. So
I will have to check it out. Okay. So, but the thing that I really wanted to bring you on to talk about, I was at a business economic meeting in Wichita at the end of July, and you were the keynote speaker to talk about the Grow Kansas program. Kevin Andrews with the Heartland Chamber down in Wichita threw it. And as soon as I listened to you talk, I thought, oh my gosh, I need to have him on this Lunch and Learn, because the information that you were talking about at that summit, that little meeting, I thought was so crucial and important to help spread out into the Black community. The question even came up that day, well, how are you getting the word out? And so what we're coming to find is that to get the word out to the Black community, we sort of have to fire on all cylinders and use all avenues to get the word out. And so this little Lunch and Learn is one avenue for you to get the word out. So can you give us a little bit of background, or do you want me to go straight to the slides? Because I thank you for sending over the slide presentation.
Yeah, we can jump to the slides in a second, but let me give you a context and background. So at this point, we've got an election coming up, and there's a lot that I have kind of put on pause with my normal Department of Commerce work. I've got other folks doing that, but something that I really have worked to make a priority is trying to make sure that we are doing a better job in reaching minority-owned businesses in our state. And so that's why I'm here 29 days out from an election. It's to have this kind of conversation and make sure that we continue our progress. I think we've made some good strides, even since we met in July, and I'm pleased about that, but we've got a lot more work to do. And so what I would like to do, if we can go ahead and get into the slides now, is just talk about kind of where we're at as a state at a high level. And you can go to the next slide, and some of the successes that we've had, and then talk about at a more granular level what we're trying to do to support more minority business success in the state. And then I hope we can just converse and have a conversation. So next slide. 3.5 years ago, almost 4 years ago, actually, we engaged at the Kansas Department of Commerce, which is the state's economic development agency, in creating the state's first new plan for economic growth in over 30 years. That new plan is called the Framework for Growth, and we had conversations all over Kansas in big communities, small communities, with a variety of groups and businesses and so forth, about what our priorities should be as a state, where we have natural strengths and where we have challenges. And that plan, which is, again, the Framework for Growth, was implemented beginning about 2 years ago. And you can see where we started in terms of economic development wins we had that first year that Governor Kelly and I were in office, and so forth. So we have a plan that is working and that is bringing a lot of new opportunities to the state. You can see over 50,000 jobs that Governor Kelly has brought in the last 3.5 years. This year, we're at $6.5 billion of announced economic development investments. And, probably most people on here have heard about Panasonic and everything that's coming with that. But gosh, we've got big economic development wins happening in Salina and Garden City and Dodge City, and going to be in Parsons later this week talking about growth down there in Southeast Kansas. So we really are seeing unprecedented levels of new investment in Kansas across geographies and across different economic sectors. So we're pleased about that. That's good news. Go to the next slide. And you can see that, we like to, it's kind of my job to blow the horn about everything going well in Kansas. And that's what any Secretary of Commerce in any state does. But what's been great is that we've been recognized nationally by other folks that are looking at every state and pointing out that Kansas last year had the most new business investment of any state in the nation on a per capita basis. So the governor won what's called the Governor's Cup. We've racked up all those wins that you can see. Go to the next slide. A bunch more. So, we have really come a long way in improving our business climate and bringing new dollars into Kansas. So next slide. Where we have work to do, though, is making sure that we are getting those dollars across the state to folks in small businesses, or maybe they haven't even started their business yet. Maybe they've got an idea about what they want to do, and they've got a skill or a talent that they would like to turn into a business, that they would like to use to create some wealth, create jobs, create opportunity for themselves and their family and their kids and their friends.
Let's talk about.
And so that's something that is really important to us as an agency, that we're taking something big like Panasonic, and through Panasonic, there's a lot of things that they're going to be buying.
Yeah.
That they're already buying right now. They're buying, dirt movers. They've got big construction companies that are coming in that have subs and subs of subs and so forth. And so there's a lot of opportunity with that particular project, which is kind of what ginned up this whole conversation that we're having today. It was about Panasonic and making sure that the opportunities that come with that can be felt not just in the Kansas City region and not just with the big companies, but across the state and with small companies of all stripes.
Right.
And so
I'll jump in to say that that's sort of how you and I started talking about this idea of, it was before Panasonic was even announced as Panasonic. Like, you knew it was Panasonic, but the rest of us didn't know it was Panasonic. But this idea of how to make sure that the opportunities that are coming to the state do make it to people who may have not had those opportunities before.
That's exactly right. And when you came to me and said, hey, I know you can't tell me what the company is, but can you be thinking about how do we create more opportunities for Black-owned businesses, Black entrepreneurs in the state, and minority entrepreneurs of all kinds in the state? It has influenced how we've thought about this as a way to, again, it's about creating wealth in Kansas. It's about creating opportunity in Kansas. And so let's go to the next slide. So we have done a couple of things that are very specific as a result of these conversations that Stacy and I have had, and that we've had in Wichita and in Kansas City and elsewhere. One of which is the creation of what's called the Grow Kansas loan program. So this is run through Network Kansas, which is Department of Commerce's small business partner that works to make sure that we are enhancing opportunities to access capital for small businesses of all types. What's cool about Grow Kansas is that the state got $69 million from the federal government for what's called the State Small Business Credit Initiative, SSBCI, just a bunch of letters. But the point here is that there's $69 million that is targeted to go out to our state's smallest businesses, particularly including minority and women-led companies. And so we've got specific opportunities for minority and women-led companies, as well as other small businesses across the state. But this is a specific and tangible program that we have set up as a way to not just be talking about ways that we can do it, but to actually overcome the most important hurdle, which is that access to capital.
Right.
And so I'm really pleased about this, and and we'll have a slide here that talks more about it. And actually, let's go ahead and go to that, Stacy. Next slide. So here we go. So you can see that this is a new program, and we've got specific goals here. I think that the best thing you can do is go to growks.com. and start the conversation. If you're not sure what this means for you, if you're not sure if this will work for you, just talk to them. Have the conversation. Explain where you are in the life cycle of your business. Maybe you haven't started your business yet. Maybe you're just sketching it out at your kitchen table. Whatever it is, take that first step and let's figure out if there's a way that we can help support what you're trying to accomplish. And they are here to help. I'm so pleased with our Network Kansas team and everything that they have done to set this program up here in I think this has been set up in about the last 90 or 120 days. So it's brand new. And
I think August 1st was their launch.
August 1st? Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of losing track of time. So August 1st. So it's brand new, and there's just great opportunities here. So please go to growks.com. To check out this really, I think, innovative loan and equity program for small businesses. Next slide. So many of you know Rhonda Harris, who is amazing and who has just done such a phenomenal job leading our Office of Minority and Women Business Development here at the Department of Commerce. You can see that we've got 365 businesses across the state that have received that certification through Rhonda's shop. And that certification is particularly important when we're talking about where there are federal contracts. So a lot of times federal money flows from Washington, D.C. down to Topeka, and it runs through state agencies. It runs through KDOT, it runs through KDADS, and so forth. And so having your certification through Rhonda's shop is a way to give you a leg up as a minority-owned business, as a women-owned business, as you're competing to get these contracts. And so it's a tough process, and that's good because you need to have a tough process to make sure you're ready. And the great thing about Rhonda and her team is that they are here not to be tough on you, but to support you through this process and get you ready like a coach, so that you're ready to play in the game with a lot of other folks that are competing for the same business opportunities.
It was Rhonda's schedule is a little lighter than yours, and so I got her on the Lunch and Learn very soon after that July meeting in Wichita. And I'll repost that because she did a wonderful job explaining that. And I think, it's one of those things I want to reiterate that a lot of these grants, a lot of these business opportunities that are handled through the state, if the state is not aware that the business exists, then the state will not have, if we don't know you exist, then any opportunity that's coming through the state, you won't get. Right. Yep. I think we'd had a conversation where we had Rhonda pull how many certified, I don't know if it was contractors or concrete movers or something. It was something we had her pull, and the list was shockingly small. And we knew that number was too low. We're like, there's got to be more Black owned businesses that do this type of work. But if the state is not aware of the businesses, then there's no way for us to get that information out.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Stacy. And let's actually, to that point, let's go to the next slide. So what Rhonda does is get businesses certified. It's a formal program so that those businesses can compete and get points on specific types of contracting. But as you pointed out, there's more than 365 minority and women-owned businesses in the state, a lot more. And so as part of our efforts to try to get our arms around who these businesses are, where they are, what they do, and how they can become suppliers to, maybe it's the state, maybe it's about a big company like Panasonic or Schwann's or Hilmar Cheese or Scorpion Biological Services, or we got to know who folks are. And so that's why this summer we set up at the Department of Commerce the Minority Women and Veteran-Owned Business Directory. And this is a way for any Kansas business that is in one of those three categories to give us their information, tell us who you are, so that when a big company comes to the Department of Commerce and says, hey, we have specific DEI requirements, diversity, equity requirements on how we are spending our contracting dollars, can you tell us who all of the, let's say, minority food vendors are in Southeast Kansas? Well, if we've got this information because folks have signed up, then yes, we can give them that list and say, hey, these are the companies and businesses that have self-identified as providing that service. And the company can then go and do their own outreach directly to those businesses. And so this is not a certification program. We don't do a vetting of the businesses that are on there. This is essentially on your honor. And you provide the information, then we will give that to any company that asks for it, and they can evaluate you, and at least they will know who you are. And I think that's been perhaps the biggest challenge we've had. It's bridging the gap between these big companies that would like to spend dollars with Black-owned businesses in the state, that would like to spend dollars with minority and veteran-owned businesses in the state. But if we don't have an easy way to give them a list of who these businesses are, then to wind up is sometimes they just go with the same old companies they've always gone with. And so we're trying to level that playing field. And the way you do that is through better communication, better information. So that's why we've set this up. If anybody's watching this now and they haven't yet given us that information, please take a look at it. Decide if you're comfortable providing that information. Again, we're doing this to try to be helpful to you and trying to be helpful to these large companies that are trying to find you so that they can enhance their own contracting opportunities. So,
and I think I also want to camp for a little bit on something you just shared, that a lot of times when companies and businesses are coming into the state, they are coming with their own, I think the word targets. They're coming with their own plans in place of what it means to hire a diverse workforce. Yep. I know that there can be many conversations that can get contentious about, all the buzzwords that get flown around in terms of diversity. But one thing that needs to be understood is that companies understand the power of a diverse workforce. And so when they come to the state, they will say, hey, we want a diverse workforce. Help us hire these people. Because obviously if a company's coming, Panasonic's coming from, out of the country, they don't know what's in Kansas. And so the importance of getting registered, the importance of certification, the importance of getting on these directories cannot be undersold. I remember, Lieutenant Governor, one of our first conversations, we were walking back to the office and I said, I needed to print some Post-it notes, right? I'm like, oh, I need to print some Post-it notes. And my first thought was, who's it easiest for me to find? Right? As a state agency, I'm not a large state agency. I'm a tiny little state agency. So I could go to Staples and print Post-it notes, or I could try to find a Black-owned business to print the Post-it notes. And do you remember what you said? This idea, I know you've used it before, this idea that, me going to Staples isn't going to make or break Staples. But if me finding a small business owner, I mean, could potentially have a huge impact on that small business owner.
That's exactly right. I buy a lot of stuff as Secretary of Commerce for our department. If we've got to be intentional about thinking about small businesses when we buy that stuff. And so that's what you and I had, just like a real honest heart to heart about, when you're a busy executive and you've only got so much time, if it's not easy, if you don't have the information at your fingertips, you tend to just, we go with Staples, and nothing against Staples. I'm Secretary of Commerce. We like all businesses. But it is important to keep in mind that if we've got the information at our fingertips, it's a lot easier to spread these dollars around in different ways that are, I think, good for agencies, that are good for companies, and certainly good for small businesses. Definitely. Go to the next slide.
Sure.
So, that kind of wraps up my formal remarks, but I'd love to just kind of continue the conversation here. And I don't know if there are any specific questions that have come in, but I hope most importantly that folks see that we're trying to walk the walk here and not just give you lip service about what we're doing as it relates to supporting minority and women-owned businesses. And I think we've made some progress, and we got more work to do.
Now, you had mentioned just in chatting before we came on the Create campaign.
Yes.
Did you want to talk about that at all?
I do. So Christina Long, who is in Wichita and who's part of the Network Kansas team, has created what's called createcampaignks.com. And this is really about activating urban entrepreneurs in our state. And I think they actually have a broader vision that's about the Midwest. And so they're really looking at supporting companies in their early stage growth, but also companies that are focused on innovation and that are looking to build their capital stack, that need access to capital. And I think it's also as well about building a network. If you are connected to other folks that, like you, are just getting on their feet and are aggressive and have a vision for what they want to do with their business, there's a lot of opportunities to work together. And so I've been really impressed with Create Campaign and everything that Christina has been doing there. And I think it holds a lot of potential and lessons for us. And what we want to try and do from the state level is support initiatives like that so that they can, have more success.
Well, I know Christine Long, and she is a wonderful powerhouse of a person down in Wichita. We need to clone her and put her in every county.
Yes, we do.
But I dropped the link to the website in the chat as well. So if people are interested in looking into that or looking more into that, they can definitely do so.
Good.
All right.
It's,
fantastic.
There's a lot going on in our state, like Create Campaign, and that I think has been kind of under the surface. And what I hope to be able to do, at least from the Department of Commerce level, is to help bring some of these initiatives into the light and have greater awareness across the state about what's going on and about all the great things that are happening. Because the more awareness there is, the more information that's out there, the more opportunities there are to connect and to build wealth, create new jobs, and change people's lives for the better.
There is one question that has come to me on occasion, because, for example, I know about the Grow Kansas program. I've been telling people about it. As soon as I found out about it, I got you on the schedule to come and talk about it yourself, which I think is, I thank you again for taking the time, especially I know it is a very busy time right now, because I felt it was very important for people to hear you put this message out, right? A lot of times the question will come to me, well, what is Commerce doing to get the word out? So if people want to find out more information, I've dropped the link about Grow Kansas, or I've dropped the link about Create Campaigns. I've had Rhonda on the show. And so when I send this out on YouTube and with the email follow-up, I can again link the Women Minority Business Owners website as a part of Department of Commerce. What else is the Commerce Department doing to get the word out?
Well, I'll never forget, I was in Wyandotte County at a public forum, and this was after, oh gosh, it was during COVID, and we had done a round of small business grants. I can't remember what that particular grant program was called, but it was Small Business Working Capital Grant. We gave out about 3,000 grants that averaged $17,000 a piece. And of course, with a program like that, we had 12 or 15,000 applications before we ran out of, so there were a lot of people that got a letter that was a no after they applied. What was alarming to me, though, in this conversation, which was primarily with minority business owners, is people said, hey, we didn't even know about it. We didn't apply because we never heard about it. And I said, well, we ran programs on our social media. We had it on our website. We've done this and that. The bottom line is our outreach didn't work. I'm not going to, I can't argue with the facts that we weren't using the right channels. We still needed, 15,000 people did hear about it, but there were swaths of our state, particularly with minority and women-owned businesses, that did not hear about it. And so I have tried to take that as a lesson, which is we need to be doing a better job of listening and figuring out what's the right way. Now, I'm here doing this right now as part of our efforts to show up. Like I said, I'm not doing most of the things that I normally do right now as Secretary of Commerce, but I am doing this because it's that important to me. And we had that conversation in July that you talked about in Wichita, but I know that Rhonda has been to the Manhattan Chamber a couple of times, the Black Mastermind Group in Wyandotte County. She's done 3 workshops with them. The Greater Topeka Partnership has a minority business council where Rhonda's been. And so we are going out and about around the state. What I would say is anybody who's watching this, if you have a suggestion on how we can better get the word out, I've worked with Kim Randolph at Heartland Black Chamber in Kansas City, having these kind of conversations, and they've had good suggestions. But I want to open this up and say, if there's a means of communication that would be more successful, I want to know about it. Because bottom line, we are working to do a better job here. We are working to be culturally competent in our approaches. We're working to show up in ways that make sense for the businesses, not that make sense for a state agency.
Right.
And I am not the person to tell you what those approaches are. That's why we need you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I know we're coming up on a half an hour. I know you have a hard stop at 12:30, so I'm going to be mindful of that and get you out of here on time. I do want to just take this opportunity to thank you again, Lieutenant Governor David Toland, for taking a half an hour out of your very busy schedule to come here and talk about programs that I think are very important and will go a long way to help increase minority and women-owned opportunities and entrepreneurship in the state. So thank you. Thank you so much. And I will go try, what again was that restaurant you talked about?
Bobo's. It's on 10th Street in Topeka. So about a mile west of the Capitol.
I will do that. I will do that. Maybe, I will do that. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. And I will see you next Monday.